we hear a lot of different words actually in agriculture that all relate to the same, which is circular economy, smart agriculture, regenerative agriculture, climate adaptation agriculture. So there's a lot of different terminologies, but they all sort of explain the same. We really look at a few aspects of it today. We had a launch. We produced a report on circular economy specifically on Kenya, but we are looking beyond Kenya as well. And we noticed 11 big trends. And again, I hope the trends will become the new norm. But in the circularity journey for agriculture in Kenya, we've seen the following. The trend number one we actually see is that regenerative or circular economy agriculture will actually fight malnourishment. So it's related. So by reducing food waste, but also improving nutrition, which is all in the same space of the circular economy, you're actually fighting malnourishing. So the security, food security and quality are really linked together and picked up together if you look at it with a circular approach. The second trend that we are seeing is that climate change mitigation is done by reforestation and biosolutions. The third one we're seeing is carbon credits are really serving as a new model in regenerative agriculture, and it really helps beyond the sector of agriculture. It also helps agriculture to become more sustainable and circular. Then we see that there's new crops being developed that are really answering to the needs for climate resilience. Renewable energy, big thing. We've mentioned it in a morning session already. It's not only how you produce or what you produce, but it's the whole package of your business. How does it run? And energy is always playing a role. Looking at the relationship we have with nature, so moving towards harmony, in harmony with nature, rather than balance. So when we started this whole conversation on sustainability, there was often a balance between profit, people, and planet. But it's not really balancing out, like do a little bit less bad and a little bit better. It's actually having an harmonious system. Then we see trend 7, food security is an economic issue. So the access to good food and nutritious food is an economic issue at the moment. So we see that good food is more expensive than bad food, and that trend should change. So how do we create accessible and affordable food? And again, if we avoid 40% food loss between farm and fork, we would be already somehow on our way. We see trend 8 is smart, low tech and hands-on innovations. So especially in Africa, East and Southern region, it's not always the ideal solution to have very high tech, heavy investments. You can also come up with low tech solutions that are more practical and they are more long-lasting in our environment and our context. 9 is that we see development of plant and insect-based proteins as a substitute for meat, both in animal feed, but also we're looking at human diets. Then the trend number 10 we saw was you think big, but you produce locally. So how what you also see is that a lot of great green beans, they will be exported to my mom far away in her supermarket. But what are we eating here? So is that the same quality green bean as that we've exported? So we see a lot of issues still that the standards for exports, for instance, don't apply for local standards. So you get food that's contaminated while the food coming from here isn't. And then 11 is phasing out waste, and so converting waste into value again. Those are the trends that we spotted specifically in Kenya, but they're actually regional trends. And we have discussed them in depth on animal protein in collaboration with the embassy. But we want to have a look on the region and how actually today, how can we, some of those innovations and trends, do they need regional scaling, or do they need copying, or do we need a local systematic change, for instance, in distribution of products? And so that's what we're looking at. So I would like to invite NatureLog, Tai. Yes, you're there. I'm looking in the...
Okay, maybe I should stand on my toes. But hello, everybody. I'm Tei Mukunyaundo, and I'm a co-founder of NatureLog Foods. And I wrote a few points down because I want to remember what to tell you. That's important. But really, a lot of food at farm level really does go to waste. And that is before it gets to market. We're all familiar with that. And then there's the issue of rainfall and climate conditions that have changed how food is grown. And so, for instance, if we're looking at green grams, what we produce, it's grown best in the semi-arid regions. So we need to encourage farmers to grow more of that, right? And how do we better stimulate commercialization than for crops in these stricken lands? So what NatureLog does is we have a mission to make nutritious, natural, and everyday food affordable to all. And also, while at the same time improving on reducing post-harvest losses and improving on the African food systems. So how do we do that? We have developed a unique food drying process. So if you take something like this, it's a dry product that is crispy, and we have dried stews. So we have taken the first level of ingredients and put them together into a stew. This is a ndengu stew, a green gram stew. And what it has in it is loaded with vegetables from farm to feed. And you'll hear farm to feed story, but also on post-harvest losses. And so we pile it with carrots and onions and tomatoes and make it into a home meal for Kenyans, and with a Kenyan palate, and then we dry that. So when you rehydrate it, picture the same method like Indomie. You just put in a bit of the dried product into hot boiling water, 3 minutes, and you're slurping away and enjoying your meal. So this is really, for us, innovative because we can be able to replicate many meals in this way into locked products that can go far and wide into communities where who don't have access to food and a quick meal. And so when we preserve that, then we have a shelf life of a year and more in this packaging. And so we have larger size packaging for the same process. But what I'd like to point out is that if we're addressing the most critical SDGs for today, we're looking at SDG 12 and 13. And if I really address what we're doing in relation to that, we're addressing responsible food consumption and production, right? And so I find it important to highlight from this perspective that our food systems are supplying future generations right now with a lot of overprocessed, nutrition dense, or is it nutrition low diets in the processed foods that we're having. And so we've deviated away from our traditional foods. And so how can we bring them back and affordably? So that's also our mission, and we want to be able to do that. And we see ourselves already churning out something that is useful. And we have no preservatives. That's a good one. So with our drying technology, we can reach remote areas, as I've mentioned. So we see our growth spanning in Africa and replicating this in different African countries because we all have and share the same problems. So we could be able to then expand this into something that we can share for Africa and create those solutions. Thank you.
I would like to invite Claire. I'm apologizing to my speakers because I shuffled everything around, just because it felt like that. But Claire, welcome.
Thank you. Thank you for having me. I'm just looking at the technology in the back. If they have my presentation. Great, fantastic. Nice picture. Thanks. Beautiful picture. So my name is Claire, founder of Farm to Feed. Let me go straight to the next slide. So I'll go straight into the problem. So globally, 1/3 of food goes to waste. I think a lot of people know this statistic. What a lot of people actually don't know is that in sub-Saharan Africa, half of fruits and vegetables never reach the consumer. Half, which is, if you let that statistic soak in, it's really a lot. It's everything we're consuming, everything we're seeing, all of that is also not reaching us and actually being dumped, fed to the cattle, used at compost, but not kept in the human food chain. And that has consequences. Why does food loss occur? Like, why are these losses exactly? So Tay already explained, so I won't get into too much detail, but it's consumer preferences. We have sort of gone bonkers with our own preferences, our own size wishes, and the way, you know, an onion has to be exactly the palm of your size of your hand. But it's dependent on so many things. It's dependent on seeds, it's dependent on fertilizers, dependent on droughts, rains, so many dependency factors, so it's very hard to create exactly that perfect tomato or the perfect onion or the perfect cucumber or the perfect French bean that has to fit in the package, as we see in most European markets. So, you know, 50% of fruits and vegetables never reach the consumer has impact on 3 different levels. First, of course, is economic impact. So 1.5 billion USD is Kenya loses because of post-harvest losses. Then secondly is climate change. So 10% of greenhouse gas emissions come from food waste and food loss. 10%, which is 6 times more than the global aviation industry. And we don't talk about this enough. So food that's left to rot releases methane. And additionally, if you dump it, you still have to produce the same food because the demand is still there. On top of that, the amount of valuable natural resources we are wasting is huge. So water, land, et cetera, everything that goes into producing this food also goes to waste. And lastly, the paradox is 1/3 of Kenyans, specifically we zoom in on Kenya, faces food insecurity. Meanwhile, we're also, you know, throwing away, in a sense, all this food. So that has a huge impact on 3 different levels. So what is Farm to Feed? So Farm to Feed is the digitally enabled solution to food loss. We are the first marketplace in East Africa for imperfect and surplus produce. So everything that the farmer produces that looks different, has an imperfection, has a blemish, has a different size, we aggregate to reduce pressure on the environment and increase farmer incomes, because this is also on an individual level a loss of their income. So, and then we repurpose it into the market. We were working with NatureLock, who is our partner, so that's fantastic. Improving food affordability, of course. So some see an opportunity, some see a problem, we see an opportunity. So this is actually a hand grab that I took the other day from our warehouse. You can sort of see what we're talking about, right? It's also a lot of too many, too small, when it's a little bit unripe, too wonky, a little bit discolored, too big. That's an actual size tomato versus a normal size tomato. Or there's handling damage. We see a lot of, you know, farmers need, you know, exactly the right way of harvesting potatoes. And sometimes there are cuts, and then we're throwing away these perfectly fresh, good potatoes. So we see an opportunity. One, we see a lower cost produce, reduced carbon and environmental footprint, a social impact. It's convenient. We do the sourcing, we do the quality control, we do direct delivery, and we have to change the perception of food loss. So if we go to the next slide. So we have to transform the food system. Africa's population will double by 2050. With current farming practices across the globe, this is not an African problem, right? Across the globe, imagine the amount of land we need to use, the amount of water we need to use, the amount of food that we're throwing away. We have to transform it. We have to start eating what we produce. We have to change our mindset. We also have to improve our yields and improve our production, for sure. But we also have to start consuming what we're actually producing. So we want to increase farmer incomes, mostly whom are women. In Kenya, 80% of farmers are women, so we're very passionate about the female aspect of it. We want to be zero waste and reducing the CO2 wastage of natural resources and improve food security and affordability across Africa. So a little bit about our operational model. I won't get into the detail too much because I have only 5 minutes, I've been told. So, but you can sort of see how it works. We aggregate imperfect and surplus produce. We have smallholder farmers, but we also collect from skilled farmers, and we work with partners such as Farmer to Market Alliance We transport it to Nairobi. We have a warehouse where we do the sorting and grading, where we have developed our own catalog according to which imperfection. So a broken carrot is different than a cracked carrot. A big potato is different than a small potato. Harvest, etc., etc. So we know every food, different imperfection has to be repurposed in a different way. And then we deliver it to our customers, and we're developing our digital platform, of course, and we're scaling to 6,000 farmers, which is very exciting, of course. So farmers can put their imperfect produce on there, and we can onboard more consumers to buy from this. Also, our impact results, we started off as a COVID emergency relief and grown into a social enterprise. So we've always monitored our SDGs. So, this is how much we've rescued, our climate impact. So we actually we worked with Wageningen University so that we actually know if you buy 1,000 kgs of carrots, we know the CO2 equivalent. So we're quantifying the environmental impact so that our customers know the actual impact that they have and the actual boosted incomes to farmers that they have. Because more and more we're growing to this world where people want to have this impact. So how do we enable partners like NatureLock to easily see their CO2 impact and their farmer impact? Food affordability, and then boosted incomes. And that's it for now. I hope I gave you a good overview from Tafid, and I'm looking forward to answering your questions later.
Karin, can I already ask a question?
Yeah, questions from the virtual room.
I already asked a question, Karin?
Yes, can you hear me?
Yes, I can.
Yes, you can ask the question. So we had two speakers, so maybe you can combine or share the two.
Yes, I will. Yeah, for me, this is a very good example, maybe one of the best I've seen to illustrate the trends we noticed. One hand, it's what NatureLock says, what Tay said. They're using a proprietary technology developed in Europe to dry the food without any quality loss. But the entire system is operated and maintained by local people from Kenya. So this, for me, it's a clear example of this trend we noticed: smart, low-tech, and hands-on innovation. And Claire illustrated very clearly that fighting malnourishment is also a case of reducing food waste in the entire value chain. And that also food security is an economic issue. So all trends we noticed in this report. But my question is, what do you need to scale up, at least in East Africa, or maybe even in the whole of Africa? Because it sounds like a very good solution for many countries.
Yeah, I mean, very good question. Of course, what do we need? So currently, it all boils down in a way to funding, right? It's like, how can we get the resources on board? So we're actively really expanding our team. It's really about our platform. So our IT platform currently is in the first phase of digitalization, where we can scale from 800 farmers to 6,000 farmers. But of course, in the future, we really want to, the digital platform can be replicable across Kenya, across borders, across East Africa, and grow together, I hope, with partners like NatureLock, so that, we can have all these different food loss purposes. On top of that, we're also doing our own R&D, so really collecting this data, and I didn't mention that, and I think that's really interesting. Everyone repeats the mantra of 50% of food is lost and wasted. And sorry, this deviates from your question a little bit, but I think it's important. We keep on repeating that. I read it in many studies, but we don't know where. We don't know which value chain. We don't know the reasons. We don't know which farmers. We don't know which seasons. It's sort of like this statistic that we've come up with. And with our data platform, already farmers now have to say, what is the reason it's a less desirable product? Is it because of harvesting techniques? Is it because there was a surplus? Is it because overplanting? Is it because it has a different size? And with that data that we are collecting, we can then develop future interventions, very localized. So already we're collecting data in Jambini specifically. We know that there's a lot of losses because of harvesting techniques in the potato value chain. So already with that data, we have gone to SMV, for example, an NGO, and then they can be very targeted in developing interventions that go to Jambini and train harvested on potatoes. And that way, we're not talking general, we have to put cold storages. Yes, we do, but being very specific and localized to the solution. So I think that's really interesting. Sorry, it deviates, but I think our platform is a very crucial part of, the standard things that we need is logistics and team and sourcing. But I think our platform that farmers can go on there, we can onboard farmers and we can really see where the problems are. And farmers have the ability and have a market for everything that looks a bit different, I think is very important.
Thanks. Then, due to time, I don't actually like that sentence, but because you want to actually have forever conversations and share all the questions, but we are moving on. Charles, you're the next. Short. Impressive, impactful, short. Good.
I like that. And thank you very much. And it's a pleasure to be here. And I want just to build on what other presenters have said. And I will absolutely hope that my presentation, long 11 slides, will be shared by all participants because it has some good numbers. And we are talking about agriculture here, which is, again, a major sector in Africa. Not only in Africa, but in Kenya, of course, more than 80% of the population depends on subsistence farming, and it's quite a big number. The economy hugely depends on that. But at the same time, we are trying to see how is agriculture an opportunity in the midst of actually the reality that it's degrading. It's a major driver of deforestation on the continent, land use conversion, loss of habitat because of biodiversity loss. But actually, it's a great opportunity. But how? That's, I think, the question. And that's what the COP27 will be talking about, the climate. Forest, agriculture will be discussed hugely at policy level, political level. But is that enough? Let me tell you a few numbers from regenerative agriculture and how transformative this can be. I had a couple of slides, and I wish that was working, otherwise I'll have to turn around. In Africa, about 250 million hectares of land is converted into something every year. That's a loss. But more importantly, some countries lose significantly good topsoils because of erosion due to that continued conversion, keep expanding. Now, there's a whole syndrome of expand. You have a farm of 2 hectares, you don't exploit it enough, but let's expand to another 2 hectares. You deforest, you expand, you expand, you expand, you expand. But actually, when you expand, you waste more, you create more damage of climate and etc. So one of the potential of transforming this sector, and it's not just about change, it's about transforming the entire food system and turn it into a circular food system. I think I've argued this in the last meeting in the Africa Green Revolution Forum. Do we continue to just talk about transforming, or can we just start talking about a circular food system? Because we need to stop the waste, which we have seen. And one of the opportunities, again, scaling up regenerative agriculture that people have been talking about. The numbers we have shows that from a climate change point of view, both adaptation and mitigation, regenerative agriculture have a huge potential to actually help us adapt to climate change, simply for many reasons. You are saving soils, soil health, water security, but also you are restoring biodiversity on farm. So your farm is already resilient by doing that. But from mitigation point of view, we also know that agriculture is one of the polluting sector. And importantly, regenerative agriculture changed that whole narrative and actually brings mitigation to bear. Very important. So a few numbers here, the next slides. And as I said, I want to make sure these slides are shared. So this is from impact and the food security potential of regenerative agriculture. This report, IUCN published it last year, and it's already online, so you can access it. But just to say that it has really huge potential if we can start transforming on how we do the business, how we take it. And from climate change, adaptation, and mitigation to the next slides. Yeah, that's how much actually regenerative agriculture have huge potential from adaptation and mitigation. You are talking about 6 gigatons of CO2. And we have looked at a few countries in sub-Saharan Africa, not the entire continent. So that's quite a huge potential. But even from adaptation, you are talking about increase of production, increase of yields. Very important. I will show you a slide here. But not only that, reducing soil erosion up to nearly 30%. And remember, the colors of our water tells you a story about the amount of topsoil, quality soil we lose every single year. Next slide. And this is about fruits. This is actually in Kenya. We analyzed some work that is being done by Twiga. Most of you know Twiga. And it has a huge potential. And they are just applying regenerative agriculture with their farms. Next slides. We looked at cocoa, some very interesting numbers. And I don't want to talk about cocoa because this was mostly Ghana and Ivory Coast, but you can go to the next slides because I want to. Next slide, please. Next slide. I mean, again, as I say, these slides will be available, so Karen will share them. But I just want to go to the other benefits from this discussion as we talk about the circularity. Keep going to the next slides. Next slides again. Just stay on that. One of the opportunity we have from private sector, most of the companies we worked with are just companies in the agribusiness industry. And I'm very happy to see quite a number of them here. So there is a huge potential to access not only sustainable finance for your investment, if you can transform your supply chain. And from my UCN point of view, we just launched what we call Nature Positive platform, where we encourage private sector to register their contribution to nature conservation, to climate adaptation, mitigation actions, or biodiversity protection. Next slide, which is probably my last one. These are just very key impact of regenerative agriculture in numbers. So you are basically talking about 270% increase in income at household level. This was done critically with the key data that really showed us that regenerative agriculture can help. Not only because of income, but also you are talking about increase in yields, you are talking about ecosystem enrichment, just to name a few. So just to close, we have been interested as an organization to assess how can agriculture, the whole sector of agriculture, actually contribute positively to biodiversity conservation, to halt biodiversity loss. And we hope that this is going to continue to be discussed. We are talking to the different ministries in Kenya to bring people together to talk about this, and private sector will be key in that discussion because agriculture plays a very critical role, both positively but also negatively in climate and biodiversity discussion. Thank you very much, Karen.
Thank you very much. There was another question, but I think we will move to the next speaker, and then we will see what Jos came up with for specific questions. So the next speaker, Peter. Yes, let me not reshuffle again. Sorry. Oh, he's there. He's online. Hi, Peter. Can you hear us?
Hi. Yes. Can you hear me?
Yes, very good. Thanks. Great to have you. Yeah, kindly share your light on circular agriculture. You have prepared this presentation as well. So, karibu.
Yes, I hope the presentation will be visible as well. But shortly introducing, calling in on behalf of Real IPM in Kenya and Tanzania. And I'm part of the Biomass group currently in Belgium, where our headquarters is. And we're an expanding group. And I don't want to take you back too far because I only have limited time. But somewhere across the street here in 1987, a local doctor actually started growing tomatoes, had some bumblebees in the garden, and found out that these bumblebees are actually really good pollinators. So he started a company really small in natural pollination, and that actually opened up the door to a lot of other innovations. I hope you're seeing my presentation right now. Yes. There we go. It's a lot better with the pictures. So you can please move on. Yes, thank you. So there's Dr. Roland de Jonge. He started with bumblebee pollination, and in the next few slides, I will explain the last bullet point. So it was actually a door opener for the rest of our business. The bumblebees were applied to more and more of our core crops, and we're also expanding the business worldwide. And you can move on again, please. Because in really basic terms, we have the bumblebees present in the different greenhouses, glass houses, and what happens when the pests arrive? Well, I guess the next slide I won't have to explain too much, but quite graphically, you can't really use any pesticides. So also joining Elfrika's story, really choose what part of sustainability, what part of circularity you want to work on. Well, I guess preventing the use of pesticides is part of our core business and a really important one to the sector. So again, moving on, this opened the door to many, many other innovations. We have a really big R&D department right now, working on loads of different pest controls and biological pest controls and different ways to both improve the crop health and also to get rid of different type of pests. So these are a couple of the examples. And then moving on, I think it's important to say that this is, of course, already part of our core business. Advice is also a big part of what we do, of course. So what pests do you use? What kind of pest pressures? How do you monitor, et cetera, et cetera? But I think what's most important in our business is to also to take into account the impact that we have on the world. So not just stop at saying, okay, we have a sustainable business we handle in biological pest control. No, we have loads of other impacts. And what we found out with after studies is that one of our biggest impacts in the next slide is on our packaging material. So these are all of our targets. So we did studies, and of course we have our own emissions, our own production process, and we have a big impact with our material use, which is mostly in packaging. In the next slide. Yes. So we have a dedicated packaging transport expert right now. We used to send out a lot of styrofoam boxes. Why? Because our bumblebees and also other animals need to be protected from the elements. They need a certain temperature, so the packaging is really important. Styrofoam used to be the first go-to choice, but we almost eliminated all of the styrofoam we used and made up these cardboard coolers, fully cardboard, and they fold away. Also, the insulation is in cardboard, so easy to recycle. We used to use a lot of plastic bottles. Why? Again, for the condition that the mites and all the other insect needs to be transported in. But we're now transferring all of these, slowly changing to cardboard cups. So that's a big improvement. And also a lot of sachets that are easy to disperse the animals inside a greenhouse or inside a growth. And they're now biodegradable, so easy when the greenhouse is cleared out. They don't need to take them out before clearing all the plant material. Designing for circularity, I think, also a really important theme. So not only do we take the packaging into account, but also in product innovation and finding new biocontrol measures. We also try to use the R ladder, so different strategies to combine different uses for products, for example. So R0 is to refuse older methods. So, for example, replacing pesticides with beneficials, but also using biofertilizers. So, for example, to improve seed stock and improve quality and make sure we don't even need to use preventives. Also, combining products. So, we recently came out with a new product against powdery mildew and mites. Combining them into one product, or the flying doctors is also an example where we had bumblebees delivering antibiotics to certain plants. So also combining products, and this is actually the line of thinking we use also to develop our products. Yes. So trying to stay ahead of recycling, and then of course other resources as well. So water is a main issue these days, and we try to use rainwater and water infiltration as much as we can in our facilities. Also, the hives are still in plastic. Bumblebees have excellent jaws, so they can chew through almost anything. So making sure that we use either biodegradable plastics or mostly that we can reuse the plastics that we currently have. We also have a lot of sugar water used for our bumblebees. So we try to recycle this, and the parts we cannot recycle, we bring to a bioreactor and produce our own energy. And I think one of the most important things, as said, is also using biofertilizer to improve plant quality and to prevent the use of traditional fertilizers. And it's also a big EU-funded project we're running with Real IPM in Kenya. And these are a few other examples of our CSR strategy that we have, and these are the examples we have in Kenya. So wherever we can, we try to plant trees. So a lot of our colleagues are also really enthusiastic about nature and biodiversity, so contributing in local projects. Again, also making sure our own production is sustainable. So solar production we have on site, and I think we're expanding this in most countries across the globe where we're producing. And also locally in Kenya, we're sponsoring some social projects and schooling for children, and also providing vegetables to different public functions, and in this example, to police stations. And that's what I would like to end with. So all colleagues around the world contributing. I'm really just the manager. It's everybody really wants to contribute, and I see the whole team just going, and that's what I love in my job. I see a lot of people with passion, and they can really change the world just by doing things. Yes, thank you.
Thank you very much, Peter. We won't forget the name, BioBest and the bee. So thank you for that. And then I move on quickly, Talash. Sorry, the last. And then we see if we can pick up one question, because the other sessions are waiting already for us. So sorry for the technical issue.
I really love coming to these conferences because you see everybody's passionate about the same things, and you hear what everybody's favorite fact is and the one that they've really held on to. So my favorite fact, or apart from food loss, food waste, the population is growing, is about actual waste. So in 2016, Nairobi produced 2,500 metric tons of organic waste a day. And we thought, oh, COVID is here, this is going to grow slowly. Right now, we're hitting 6,000 metric tons of waste a day. Organic waste, not what is coming from the farmers, but what we can find around Nairobi. So we looked, what can we do with this? So I'm super passionate about agriculture. My degree is in agriculture because I believe everybody needs to eat, and that's why we're all here in this session. But my passion actually started with fish. So I wanted to farm fish and see from fish, I believe white meat is the next frontier, livestock production, blah, 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 blah. But when we're doing the costing, we realized that it's super expensive to grow fish in Kenya, which makes no sense because we have the perfect climate, we have very clean water. Everybody's like, oh, Lake Victoria, omena, omena, omena. There is no omena in Lake Victoria, my second favorite fact. So he said, why is fish production so expensive in this region of the world when all the other factors there are conducive for production, and it's feed. So feed in East Africa makes up 60 to 70% of the cost of production, almost 80% when you talk about aquaculture, and of that, protein is 70% of the production. Can we, next. Yeah. So we looked, how can we replace this unsustainable protein in the form of fish meal and soy, and what can we use? We looked at spirulina, which is very interesting. We looked at algae, we looked at everything else, and we landed on insects. So we believe we need to make insects a new standard because we can create future-proof chains. You know, everybody kind of needs to work together. We can upcycle the waste. And we can reduce our carbon offset because we are taking waste and transforming it into other products. So at InsectiPro, we are started in 2018. Next. One back. Yeah, we were founded in October of 2018. So this month was our 4th birthday. We are located in Limuru. We are now 150 people and we care for almost 1 billion insects every single day. We believe that we are not farmers, we are food changers, value chain. And then how do we do this? Next. We have currently 2.5 insects on docket. We have our black soldier fly, which is nutritious, circular, sustainable, and profitable. And this is our recycler of waste. And we have our crickets for our human nutrition program. You're looking at me a bit weird, but you will eat crickets before you leave today. And then what do we do? We see how these insects can plug into the chain. So this is our very wonderful circular economy within the insects. So we have our human consumption, and our human consumption is meat, fruits and vegetables. People are eating it. But from these value chains is also waste. So all the fresh juice we drank today, a pineapple skin is lying somewhere, hopefully at my facility. The mango pulp is also hopefully at my facility. If we have beer later, I don't know. The beer waste is also all being brought to InsectiPro. So we take all this organic waste, we process it using our black soldier flies. We get fertilizer in return that's pumped back into horticulture, fruits and vegetable, wonderfully circular on that end. On the other hand, we have our protein, which goes into livestock, which goes into meat production, which goes into human consumption. You technically can use slaughterhouse waste as well, but it's a gray area, so we stay away from it. Next. Why is it gray? You don't want to risk mad cow disease. There's not yet enough information and data and science behind black soldier fly production to know if they transfer disease onwards. What have we done till now? We've done 200 metric tons of black soldier fly, which is equivalent to around 2 million kilos of fish or around 500,000 chickens. 1 kilo of BSF eats around 10 kilos of waste. So as of today, we're doing around 40,000 kilos of waste a day, doing 4 tons of black soldier flies. It is, 5,000 metric tons of usable protein that we've made. But more interesting is the impact that we're seeing on farms. So we did this because we believe feed can be cheaper, it can be produced better. What we're seeing is farmers are having shorter growth periods. Maggie, you can tell us about your pigs, sorry. But also shorter growth periods, the animals are looking healthier, the farm is looking better. So our new project is our fertilizer, how are we making that into regenerative systems? Next. So what this led to, and you guys, you have to tell me what you think of this because this is our new corporate look, is the 4 different industries that we kind of feel that we intersect in with our insects. So the first one is obviously feed. The second one is food with our human nutrition program. The third one is consult. We work on a lot of very cool projects. And the fourth one is agri. I'm currently most passionate about agri. Most of my team is still on food. So we're seeing how can we take our fertilizer and plug that into smallholder farming systems or big rose farms, flower farms. What we have done so far is in 2020, we were doing 3 tons of waste a day, around 100 kilos of BSF, 400 kilos of fertilizer. That was still our experimental year figuring it out. As of this year, we've done 40,000 kilos of waste a day, 4 tons of BSF, and around, 50 tons of fertilizer a month. Our goal by 2025 is 3,000 tons of organic waste a day, 1,000 tons of BSF, 4,000 tons of fertilizer. Next. This can feed 9 million chickens a year. We can upcycle 120,000 metric tons of waste, and we can fertilize 13,000 acres a year on these figures. This is nothing. 3,000 tons of waste a day is half of what Nairobi is doing. So there's so many opportunities for growth, for working together. I hope that all the ugly vegetables go to Claire and NatureLock first, and all that NatureLock's waste comes to us. There's still a lot of challenges within the insect industry. Competitive pricing is the biggest. We're lucky that we sit in a region of the world where we don't have to worry about temperature. We're already competitive compared to Europe, but now we have to be competitive in terms of soy and fish meal. Technology development, our insects are pretty low tech. I mean, everybody's seen a spider before, so they've been around for years. How are we taking this and including a few elements of IoT to make it work better for our systems? It's a pretty closed industry. Like I was telling Claire, it's very young. Everybody's super secretive about their R&D. Be a lot more helpful if we all kind of worked together. Consistent raw material supply. The good and bad thing about Kenya is we have mangoes in season for 3 months, and then we have avocados in season for 3 months, and then tomatoes. So we're currently working a lot of recipe development. I know it sounds weird, but I think my insects actually eats better than me. I know yesterday they had beer, tomato, and mango, which I did not have, but maybe had a sandwich. But yeah, it's okay. And then the regulatory environment. So we're really lucky that the Kenyan government is very open and willing, are helping us build these regulations, so they're making our lives a bit easier. So we believe that insects sit at the intersection of creative innovation, technology, and science, and all these kind of work together to create our small part of the circular economy. Thank you, and I hope it doesn't bug you.
Ah, that's fantastic. Yeah, I don't think we need to say anything more. You left us in good spirits. Yeah, all of that combined. So it's just a matter of practice, bringing it together and all start doing it. And I think a lot of people need to know that it's happening. So sharing all that's what's happening and all those solutions that are just there or in development, and how we can grow them, spread them, copy them, make sure it becomes our new system. That is, I think, what we all need to work on in the coming 5 years and in the coming year. And then we can see how far we got next year, the same conference, and plan more time for plenary sessions, which are not plenary because we haven't had the chance to discuss our questions or question and answer at all. So super thanks. I think what we will do is collect questions, answers, presentations, and everything, and share. Really appreciate the fact that you are here live, and people online, of course, online, that you all wanted to contribute and share. Because I think the sharing the stories and the good practices is the proof of the concept. And I think people need that. People need to hear that is possible. Thank you so much.